Yeah. So we also had another hurricane that happened last week. That was Hurricane Helene, North Carolina. This is from CNBC. North Carolina senator calls conspiracy theorists around Helene federal response to a distraction. All right. Senator Thomas Tills, Republican of North Carolina, chided some of the false conspiracy theories that have surfaced surrounding the Hurricane Helene recovery efforts in Western North Carolina. His comments came days after North Carolina State Senator Kevin Corbin penned a Facebook post asking people to stop the conspiracy theory junk. It was also said that for now, the state has enough resources for its recovery efforts, but will need more. Yes, they definitely need more. But as far as conspiracy theory, what are they talking about?
Exactly. Like why can't they be a little more like specific about what they are saying? And you know why? Because some things are very far-fetched, and some things probably are not happening. Like maybe, the government or the elite are sending like, the weather to us. That's something that maybe you should put on the back burner for a second. But things like, mismanagement of FEMA funds, using it for, migrants and stuff like that. Are you talking about that? Because we actually have KJP, in the press briefing room saying to everybody that they're repurposing funds from FEMA for humanitarian crisis for the migrants. So you can't have that, the internet doesn't die. Everybody has that on video. People are resurfacing it. And then you have people that are on the ground that are making videos that are saying like, there's some weird stuff going on here. They're stopping us from helping out. They're stopping us from getting to the Appalachian areas. Like, there's a lot of stuff that like, at what point do you stop listening to the people that are on the ground and you start saying like, well, they have to be lying. Why would they lie? Right. They're going through so much turmoil right now. Like, why would they take the time to just make a bogus TikTok video?
Exactly. So we got here. I said, chill some conspiracy theories. Read that part. Any challenge? If there are any challenges, call my office. Till says Sunday on CBS. We'll track them down if there's any real issues. But quite honestly, most of what I've seen out there is distraction, not helping the core efforts. Core efforts. Okay. Well, let's check out some core efforts, shall we?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, this beat kind of slaps. I can't help it. Scrap Tennessee also.
Sorry for the language. I didn't say that.
Potty mouths.
Right. I mean, I think we get the gist here. Like,
yeah.
I don't know who that was, or
right.
They were trying to get like a tail number or whatnot. But this is a parking lot full of supplies that people have sent in.
Right. Right, and they said they had masks on. Like, why did they have masks on? Why were they hiding their identity? That's what one of the captions said. And like, if you want to see what's going on down there, you don't have to fly. You don't have to descend that far down. Like, did you ever hear a zoom on your cameras, like, or on your phone? Like, why did you have to descend so far down when if you're a helicopter pilot, what happens when you get too close? The winds that will. I don't know. That's
I get it. I get it. And So this was apparently in Burnsville, North Carolina.
Mm.
You know, and it's funny you mentioned because when you're talking about some of the more accessible areas, obviously it's much easier to get supplies and things in, but it's the areas that you can't, like in the Appalachian Mountains. You know,
Right.
those are the areas in which people are still stuck there, and every day that goes by that they don't, it's going to be much harder to survive. You know, because you only go 3 days without water, a week without food, like those kind of things, and that's if you were properly prepared. But if you weren't, what can you do?
Yeah.
But anyways, I believe we got somebody joining
Sending
us
prayers
here.
to all those people.
Wait a second, I'm going to plop him up on stage.
Scrap.
What up?
It's the Rant Master.
What up?
Is going?
Don't mind my. Oh, hold on. I got somebody in my ear. I got to turn him down. Dang, producers. We're trying to do a show over here. Appreciate you. Don't mind the angry EMT down here. I did.
Oh, I love that.
I did take it. I'm not EMT now. I did do the schooling and stuff. So this whole mess and across the Appalachia and Southeast has just got me completely upside down. For, as they say on the street, you got me effed up right now.
Right.
There's way too many videos of people up there in the hills, helicopter pilots. Some people are tracking flight radar right now, and they're saying that it's like 20-1 civilian to military aircraft, and those Blackhawks that are unmarked. There was one guy that came in on X saying that he had followed a lot of these private military mercenary disaster relief groups that the government contracts, and they run these kinds of hardware, and we don't know who that is. You got to be careful. There's a lot of people out there that are collecting donations. When you go to drop off donations to somebody local, ask them where they're sending it. What is their game plan?
Right.
Are they going in saying, are they already hooked up with an NGO or a FEMA or some, something that, where are they hooked up? Yeah. What's your supply line? Who's getting help? Are you trying to bypass blockades to get food in? Now, what you don't want to do is go in and actually impede on legitimate operations. And that's the big problem, is you have a split between the federal government and the state level government, Tennessee, North Carolina alike, and then you have the sheriffs and the fire departments, and even they're split. Some of them are with the feds on this stuff, and we've seen it all each way. People getting threatened to be arrested for coming in and being like, we had a bunch of Ohio guys that were flying out in this Queen City. These guys, this news outlet right here is covering it proper. They're the first ones to cover this guy right here, and the husband and wife that got separated.
One man's efforts to help are now the source of controversy. He flew his own chopper on his own dime to help stranded victims, but that man says he abandoned his rescue missions after a fire official threatened to have him thrown in jail. Well, that man now wants answers and turned to Queen City News chief investigator Jody Barr to help figure out what went wrong here.
This is the original post that I was reading when I decided to go up and help. It's a long post, but she's saying that her kids and family and animals are trapped. No way out, no supplies, and the only way in or out is accessible by helicopter. Limited cell service and no water since Friday morning. I thought I have a helicopter and maybe I can help.
Jordan Sidham piled food and water into his helicopter Saturday and headed up toward Banner Elk, the only way through a mountain gap in Lake Lure.
This is the mountain valley that you would have to fly to get to Black Mountain, where we were escorting people out.
I'm going to pause this for a second. So you were saying, Scrap, so they're being thwarted, and then they're essentially just giving up at that point.
Yeah, and this guy, there's a follow-up that Queen City did with the couple that he attempted to help. He got the wife out, had to leave his son, and then the fire official then said, hey, if you go back up that mountain, we're going to arrest you. And he said, well, I can't do that. My son, my co-pilot, is up there, and I'm not leaving him behind. So he went against the fire marshal or the fire official and went up, got his son, and told this guy, now imagine you're a husband and wife, and some guy comes and grabs your wife, leaves the son behind, and takes her away and says, I'm taking my son with me, I'm sorry. And then it's like, you have no idea where your wife is. You just trusted a total stranger in a helicopter that just took your wife. Luckily, about 20 minutes later, there was already a rescue team on the ground up there. That guy was able to see them, and they knew who he was and where he was. Why? Because this civilian helicopter pilot came in and rescued one person, and they radioed, instead of working with the helicopter pilot and saying, we have a team on the ground in that area right now. There's no need to go back up there. We need you to regroup over at whatever, where our other airlift guys are that are civilian. We've got this. He would have been like, cool, but I have to go get my co-pilot anyway, so I'm going to go get him first. Like, if they'd have worked with him, it'd be cool, because then the next day or so, he was with other pilots doing this exact same thing. So what they're doing is the way they're confiscating, it's a weird word because to use in this context, is they're bottlenecking. It's credentialism at its finest. And they're saying, well, you're not qualified, you don't have this training, you don't know how to do emergency search and rescue, blah, 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 blah. Well, nobody on American soil seen this kind of an incident like this, ever. So who's got real creds up here? It's the people that live there that know how to... That
know the area.
That know the area and are able to do things, and people that are fairly capable pilots that know how to make an LZ and make contact with people, and they say if you can make some kind of contact with somebody and they can put out a big X on the ground, which they're saying, hey, put an X with this kind of a size so that way we know our LZ. They're working with people. They're really doing it, and the government's not. And they actually blocked off an entire runway in the last day with FEMA helicopters.
And the odd thing is that they're simultaneously saying we need more resources. We don't have enough to help these people. We need more help. But yet when you have people coming to help, it's like, yeah, well, you're not helping the way we want you to help. Well, do we really have time to draw a diagram and a blueprint? Like, can we just get everybody's to safety? And like you responsibly pointed out, yes, you do have to make sure what you're doing. You have to make sure who you're giving these goods and resources to, that like where they're going to go with it, that it's, that you're not impeding on other people that are trying to get up certain areas and hills and whatnot. Like, you're doing it responsibly. Yes. Two things can be true at the same time. It's not all or nothing, it can be.
Yeah, and there are legitimate, I say legitimate, there are established disaster relief companies and nonprofits that are complaining right now. Even Glenn Beck's Mercury One, who worked with what's the guy's name that did the human trafficking stuff?
Oh, Tim Ballard.
Tim Ballard. He worked with Tim Ballard. Not that Tim Ballard is that great of a dude always, and he does have his own things, but Glenn Beck has done his philanthropic duty and said, I'm going to use my money and my platform to fund these kinds of endeavors. And his people and others have been reporting that federal agencies are bottlenecking them. They're impeding. And then there's even reports that some local sheriffs in their jurisdictions are threatening to arrest any federal agents that impede on their search and rescue efforts. They're locking down their own towns. And then the other rumor I heard that I have to check out on is what's going on at the colleges. Some people, I was told that it's like Lord of the Flies, potentially. Say potentially, allegedly, because I haven't looked into it myself yet. So,
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the colleges and in the tens of thousands of students that are there right now. I mean, has anybody heard anything about Appalachia State? Their football team, their basketball team? Like, has anybody heard anything?
Mm-mm.
I'm pretty sure they played this weekend, but if they had a home game, it wasn't going to be there.
Right. Well, it's closed for sure. North Carolina being closed for at least the next 2 weeks. That they're not going to resume classes earlier than October 16th.
Yeah, and then you have this other issue that I just found out about. when you're talking about resources and saying, hey, we don't need you to go in there with resources, but also we're going to need resources as well. Take a look at this video. Now, I mean, I don't know how people are going to take this, but it's a very interesting topic of discussion. So let's take a look.
This one makes me so mad.
No. I've heard about this, but I actually haven't heard it yet. I was.
Let me see here. I don't know. Is it not working? Here, let me pull it back up. Give me a second. But yeah, so this is about the distribution of different resources. And the last time I checked, I mean, you get the resources out to the people that you need to. Not to specific groups or whatnot. But here we go.
Disadvantaged already are struggling. They already have their own things to deal with. So you add a disaster on top of that. It's just compounding on itself. And I think that is maybe the why of why we're having these discussions, because it isn't being talked about. It isn't being socialized. We're not paying attention to this community. Thank you so much. Maggie.
Thank you. There are a couple of things that are intersecting in my mind here. One of them is the culture of emergency management as an organization, as an industry in the United States specifically, not abroad. This has, and my cat sometimes does this, she gets really loud suddenly, so you'll have to just allow for the little meowing in the background. The shift that we're seeing right now is a shift in emergency management from utilitarian principles where everything is designed for the greatest good for the greatest amount of people to disaster equity. But we have to do more, right? And so this topic is intersecting, I think, with a number of other topics where we have to look at policies and understand to what extent they have disadvantaged communities that had less assets, communities that had pre-existing vulnerabilities in accessing disaster-related recovery supports.
Yeah, so essentially, you didn't hear the beginning of this, but essentially they were talking about the LGBTQ community.
I thought when they said people that it was hard for them to get resources, I thought they meant like the Appalachian, people in Appalachia, because I would think they have the hardest time to get resources.
Yeah, no, these are professional victims.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, not the LGBTQ community. We want to be clear. We're talking about the people at the top that are trying to push all of this stuff in because, how do they know that their community is suffering specifically in there? Nobody knows.
We don't. All we know is that entire area is suffering right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's very tone deaf of them to single out one group of people versus another. Because if you listen close to what they're saying, is they are shifting the emergency relief efforts across the board, even globally, I think is what she said, are shifting from a utilitarian, the most aid to the most people, to a more disaster equity, which means, sorry, if you don't if you're not on the far enough up the scale of the oppression Olympics, if you don't check enough boxes, and even then, Roma the other night was talking about how many boxes he checked off trying to get aid in just the basic stuff, being a dude living, Now think about an entire region where it's like, oh, it's southern Appalachia. Yeah, there's some minorities in there, but a lot of those hills are full of people that are like, they're Scotch Irish immigrants and whatnot that have lived in the hills. They're from like in Kentucky and West Virginia and places like that. That's all my family background, right, too? Yeah. So when you start talking about disaster equity, now you've just thrown out the majority of the population, because you're going to have so few people left that check any boxes in some of these more homogenous areas. So that's basically what they're doing. They're just sitting on their hands going, well, we can't find any LGBTQIAA++ stuff, whatever alphabet, stuff we want to. So we're just going to sit here on our hands until we do. And then we'll start saving the rest of everybody else.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder too, like, Was that the plan all along? Like, is this the reason why they can't get resources in? I'm not saying it's the main reason, but for the people up at the top, are they sitting back going, let me think. Should we figure out how to distribute? No, you don't. You don't try to. You just get the resources in there. Period.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
because the last time I checked, there are dead people of all races, religions, and orientations.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You
Like
know?
a natural disaster doesn't discriminate. You know, if you're in the path, you're in the path. If you have a mansion, it's getting crushed. If you have a little shack on a hill, it's getting crushed. You know, you can't get to water, you're thirsty just as much as the person right there who usually walks around with diamonds around their neck. Like, you know, it doesn't matter. You know,
Exactly.
like you never realize how human you are and how we're all alike in humanity when a disaster hits. And that's what we should be focusing on. That's what we should like this is like the moment where everybody gets like, you know, we all come together, we all help each other.
Right.
You know, like the pride in our country and the people around us is supposed to get boasted, and we're supposed to have that kind of feeling, you know. And then you have them coming in here with this whole discussion of, yeah, well, not everybody's equal, and you know, you've been getting the goods for so long, maybe we should use this disaster to reallocate funds, you know, in an equity form.
Yeah, because if I were on the ground there and I got resources, let's say I got resources for a family, and somebody walked up to me and said, "Hey, they ran out of resources. I need like just a little bit of water. You know, do you have anything for me?" My first question is not going to be, "Hey, like, where are you on this checkbox?" You know, no, I'm going to help you.
Right.
So I don't know why you would think that from the top down that would be a good message to send to all the people that are out there that have lost loved ones or don't even know if they're alive or dead. That's even worse. Like, you don't want to be like, if you know something happened and, you know, God rest her soul, you know, then at least you have closure. But there's a lot of people out there that don't have closure. So I'll tell you what, anybody in the audience right now, show me anything, a headline, a tweet, a video, a post, where anyone was denied relief on site because of their race, color, religion, creed, sexual orientation, and disability, and I will send you to the courtroom myself.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is there are so many people that are applying for that $750. They're getting denied. But there's also another catch. What happens when they start actually, you know, handing out $750 to people? There's a something that I don't know the veracity of it because I haven't seen any other evidence to corroborate this. But that $750, allegedly, there's a contract involved. There was a guy on that called into a radio station claiming to be a former FEMA inspector and said that, well, this may be why some people are not getting the $750 is because there's nothing to inspect. There's no way to get to the place to inspect in most cases because whether it doesn't exist or it's just impossible to get there. But when they do, before you can obtain that $750, there's a contract that states that you have to. It's not a gift. It's not a grant. It's a payback loan. And if you don't pay it back, they get to allegedly confiscate your property. So there are some outlandish stuff, things that are being said. Now, we've seen things come up in recent years that we thought were conspiracy that turned out to be real. There's a lot of accusations about lithium mines, which exist, the people that are involved in who owns those lithium deposits or wants those lithium deposits, has the mining companies and their connections to Kamala's husband and things of that nature. A lot of those connections are real. The problem is connecting them directly is the issue with the FEMA relief efforts. There's so much going on all at one time that honestly, the people who are peddling weather modification and there are some AI things that are coming out now that are generated that we can spot them. Those of us that are denizens of the internet spot this AI stuff, but there's a lot of stuff being fed into the mix to try to discredit people who are trying to actually tell the truth about what's going on and warn people about who they're donating to and telling people to just keep trying regardless, and it just makes me want to wring somebody's neck because there's corruption all over the place. And if my trip to Springfield taught me anything, it's that corruption is at every level. It's not just the feds; it's local too.